Karen called the cops on my sunflowers, then got sued for trespassing and racism. Let me start by saying something I never thought I'd have to say out loud. I don't even live in her neighborhood, but I do own the land next to it, about 6 acres on the eastern edge of Fairgrove, Virginia, just past where the asphalt ends and gravel takes over. My name's Avery Jones. I'm 29, a freelance landscape designer, and I run a nonprofit project I call Sunlight for Solace, a public access sunflower field in memory of my brother, Elijah, who we lost in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Every July, that land glows yellow with over 40,000 sunflowers. It draws kids, photographers, veterans, and families from counties away. I built a path through it. I planted benches. I installed a hand-painted sign that says, "Bloom where they remember you." It was peaceful until Karen Monroe decided to make it her problem. She's the self-appointed queen of the Willowgate subdivision, not HOA president. That would imply she was elected. No, she runs a volunteer patrol committee with clipboards, flashing vests, and a megaphone she's used to shout at Girl Scouts selling cookies too close to the sidewalk. I didn't even know her name until last summer, when I got home from delivering produce to the community pantry and saw 2 police SUVs parked on the edge of my field, their wheels deep in the grass, crushing sunflowers under rubber. Karen stood in the middle of the mess like she was defending the Alamo. "There she is," she shouted as I walked up. "This is the woman I reported." The younger officer looked confused. "Reported for what, ma'am?" Karen huffed, flipping her clipboard open like she was reading off an indictment. "Unauthorized agricultural display, excessive visual obstruction, possible allergenic plant hazards," and she looked directly at me. "Threats to neighborhood harmony." I blinked. "You called the police because of sunflowers." Karen pointed at my welcome sign like it was a manifesto. "This structure is provocative. It invites loiterers, and there's no posted permit from the HOA. That's when I almost laughed. "There's no HOA here." I said, "I'm not even in your district. Everything visible from Willowgate falls under visual domain concern." She said, like she was quoting law. "We have bylaws. You're triggering asthma attacks and lowering property value." One of the cops started rubbing his temple. The other one gently asked me to confirm I owned the land. "I do," I said, holding up my ID and property card. "You can verify it with the registrar's office." Karen wasn't having it. "She has a website. She takes donations. This could be tax evasion." I looked at the trampled rows of flowers. Kids had been here just yesterday laughing, taking photos. Families had left handwritten notes on the memory board for lost ones. And now this power-hungry woman had destroyed a whole corner of it. And the worst part, the cops didn't even cite her. They left with a warning for me about keeping the area visibly clear of pedestrian traffic. And Karen strutted away like she'd won a war. If I thought Karen's tantrum in the sunflower rows was the worst of it, I was wrong. 2 days after the police left my field after crushing nearly 60 square feet of fresh blooms and kicking up dust over Elijah's memorial bench, the real storm began. She didn't just walk away. She declared war. It started with flyers, dozens of them, taped to the community board outside Willowgate's entrance, slipped into mailboxes, and even pinned to the side of the post office wall downtown. The headline read, "Is this really about sunflowers or something darker?" Underneath was a photo of me pulled from my nonprofit's website next to bolded accusations. "Out-of-towner operating without regulation. Political messaging disguised as gardening. Exploiting land for suspicious donations. Alarming presence near family homes." At the bottom, "This is a neighborhood, not a protest zone. Protect Willowgate. Say no to visual blight. EPVC Elmsworth Property and Visual Committee." I stared at the paper, jaw slack. EPVC. That wasn't a real committee. It wasn't recognized by the county, and it damn sure wasn't legal. It was just Karen. I called the local zoning board. They confirmed I was well within my rights. The land was zoned agricultural residential, exempt from HOA influence, and registered under a nonprofit veteran honorarium. But Karen didn't care about facts. She cared about control. By week's end, I started getting messages from folks I'd never met. Hey, just wanted you to know someone left a note on my porch saying your field is a safety concern. I heard from the PTA Karen's been calling you an activist squatter. I used to volunteer for your garden. But I've got to step back. Sorry, it's too political now. She was spreading poison, one rumor at a time, but she didn't stop there. She started attending county meetings and speaking publicly. We're just asking for responsible usage of land near schools and children. These oversized flowers are visual distractions. We've had allergy complaints, trespassing, even reports of gatherings with political tones. I was stunned. Then one afternoon, it escalated hard. Saturday morning, I was hosting a small group of military families who'd come to visit the field. Some had lost sons, like I lost Elijah. A couple brought framed photos. One elderly black vet named Mr. Harlan had tears in his eyes as he sat beside the sunflowers and whispered his grandson's name. And then Karen showed up, marching down the gravel path in a highlighter vest, holding a clipboard and a GoPro on a stick. "You're on notice," she barked. "This property is under EPVC review. You're violating visual peace codes." I stepped forward, calm but firm. "Karen, you're trespassing. You're not law enforcement. There is no EPVC. I represent this community," she snapped, swinging the camera toward the group. "And I'm documenting illegal public assemblies for evidence." One of the moms stood in front of her. "These are grieving families. Show some respect." Karen turned on her. "And who gave you permission to park in front of Willowgate, huh? You think you're above rules?" She kept shouting. She filmed every single face. She even called the police again, claiming a possible unlicensed protest was forming. I told her to leave. And that's when she knocked over a wooden post by the memorial board. It cracked loudly. A few flowers toppled with it. She froze. So did I. That sound, that act, that's what changed everything. Mr. Harlan's daughter pulled out her phone and hit record. A few seconds later, so did I. So did others. Karen kept yelling, but now the narrative was shifting fast. Within hours, the video was online. By that evening, it had over 200,000 views. Caption: "This woman harassed grieving veterans in a sunflower memorial field." For visual pollution comments exploded. That's racism, plain and simple. She doesn't own the land. Who does she think she is? Imagine attacking a memorial. This is disgusting. Someone get her investigated. She's dangerous. I woke up the next morning to a full inbox. News outlets wanted interviews. Advocacy groups offered support. Lawyers reached out with defamation representation proposals. But what truly hit me, what finally made me feel like I wasn't alone, was what showed up at the gate. Hundreds of sunflowers, not the ones I'd planted, ones brought by strangers, taped to signs, stuck in jars, painted on cardboard, left with handwritten notes: "For your brother. Thank you for your peace. This field matters." The community had chosen, and it wasn't Karen. Let me tell you something no one warns you about when you're on the right side of public opinion. Even when the truth is on your side, people like Karen will still try to bury you in paperwork. After the video of her screaming in the field went viral, after the local news picked it up, and after strangers started dropping off sunflowers and letters at my gate, I figured she'd crawl back under whatever plastic HOA rock she'd come from. But nope, she filed a lawsuit. 2 weeks later, I found an envelope taped to the gatepost of my field. It wasn't mailed. It was hand-delivered. Inside, a notice of legal action filed in Fairgrove County Circuit Court. Plaintiff Karen Monroe, on behalf of EPVC defendant Avery Jones, claim public nuisance, disruption of visual order, non-permitted memorial structure, unlicensed nonprofit donations on agricultural land. There it was again, that acronym EPVC. Elmsworth Property and Visual Committee, the HOA that didn't exist. She was doubling down, but she made one mistake. She put it on paper. And when you put something on paper in court, you give people like me a chance to burn it down legally. Her name was Lainey McGill, and she was as southern as honeysuckle and twice as sharp. I've been waiting for this Karen to step out of line for 2 years. She told me, flipping through the packet like she was scanning a dinner menu. She's filed nuisance reports on 4 food trucks, 1 goat yoga class, and a lemonade stand with too many signs. Goat yoga, kid, you not? Lainey was fierce, focused, and laser precise. Within 3 days, she filed a counterclaim for trespassing, defamation, harassment, and property damage. And we subpoenaed everything. Her flyers, her committee's bylaws, her PayPal records, and most importantly, her HOA credentials. That's where it all fell apart. The courtroom was packed, not just with lawyers and staff, but with neighbors, reporters, even tourists who'd seen the viral video and wanted to see what a real-life Karen meltdown looked like in court. Karen wore her usual gray and pearls, hair tight, holding a leather folder full of color-coded tabs. Lainey and I sat side by side, cool as spring tea. The judge, an older woman named Justice Marcia Carter, opened the session with a raised brow. Ms. Monroe, you're representing the Elmsworth Property and Visual Committee. Please provide its legal documentation, charter, and board member list. Karen stood with a smile that could sour milk. We are a concerned citizens group operating under private guidelines modeled after established HOA principles. We represent over 30, ma'am. The judge interrupted. Are you registered with the state as an HOA or public authority? Karen's eyes flickered. Well, no, but we do operate within a charter. Who wrote the charter? I did, with input. So you created it, enforced it, collected funds, and now you're suing under its name? Karen blinked. Whispers rustled across the courtroom. Justice Carter continued. Did you know, Ms. Monroe, that impersonating a public administrative body, especially one issuing documents designed to mimic government fines, is a violation of both civil and criminal code? Karen opened her mouth, then closed it, and for the first time she had nothing to say. Then Lainey stood. Your Honor, we'd like to submit a document titled Karen Memo EPVC, PDF, retrieved from a public Google Drive, linked in one of Ms. Monroe's flyers. She clicked the screen. The courtroom projector lit up. To enforce visual standards, we don't need actual laws, just enough paperwork and fear to keep people from asking. Karen Monroe. Internal EPVC memo gasps. Laughter. A few audible, oh my God-s. Justice Carter's face went stone cold. Motion to dismiss the plaintiff's case is granted. Counterclaim will proceed to full hearing. Ms. Monroe, I strongly suggest you retain counsel. Local news aired the story that night. Fake HOA president loses lawsuit against Sunflower Memorial Field. They showed the email. They showed her face. They even got a quote from the county commissioner. There is no Elmsworth Property and Visual Committee. Never has been. And now, never will be. Karen stopped showing up to community meetings. Her so-called committee disbanded within a week. Someone spray-painted "Let Us Bloom" on her garage door. What happened next still makes me tear up. Volunteers organized a community cleanup of the sunflower rows Karen had stomped through. Over 40 people showed up, including Mr. Harlan, who helped rebuild the memorial sign with his own hands. A group of teens painted a mural across the garden shed. No one owns the sunlight. A petition to recognize the field as a protected public cultural space passed with over 12,000 signatures in a week. And one afternoon, the city council in front of cameras awarded me a preservation grant to expand the path and install solar lighting in honor of Elijah Jones and all who find peace in these blooms. I cried, right there, on the podium. You'd think after losing in court, after being exposed in front of half the town, after the flyers and the fake HOA went up in smoke, Karen Monroe would back off. She didn't. See? People like her don't retreat. They wait. They seethe in silence, polish their pride like tarnished silver, and plan their next move like it's a righteous crusade. And in Karen's case, that meant doing the one thing I never expected, coming back under cover of night. The weeks after the trial were beautiful, more peaceful than I'd known in years. The town council officially recognized the sunflower field as a community green zone. We got funding for better walking paths, new benches, and a shaded rest area with Elijah's name carved into the wood. Families returned, veterans returned, teachers brought students on field trips. A local poet even wrote about the place where peace grows wild. I thought it was over. Then, around 2:30 a.m., on a Thursday night, my phone pinged with a motion alert from the field. I was already half asleep, curled on the couch, thinking about nothing more serious than which wildflower mix to plant next spring. I almost ignored it, but something about the frame, the light, the posture made me sit up. I rewound the clip. At first, it was just the grainy edge of the fence line. Then the figure appeared, hoodie pulled up, shoulders hunched, dragging a dark plastic bag in one hand and a jug in the other. They crept toward the south end of the field, the newer section, where we just planted a fresh line of golden sunbursts. They stopped, looked around, then pulled out a canister, sprayed it on the soil, herbicide. I could barely breathe. Then they moved to the next patch, then another. They didn't rush. They knew where to go, targeting the healthiest blooms, the youngest rows. It wasn't random. I tapped to zoom, and even through the shadows and hood, I knew that posture, that walk. Karen, I didn't call 911. I called Lainey. She picked up groggy. What Karen's in the field? Pause. Then I'm on my way. I texted Miguel too. He lived 2 blocks over and still had the spare key to the community tool shed. By the time I threw on my coat and stepped outside, she was still there. I didn't yell. I didn't even get close. I stood at the edge of the path and flipped on the field's motion lights. Karen froze in the middle of a row, bleach jug in one hand, spray bottle in the other. Caught. She turned slowly, then said as if I was the one trespassing, "You shouldn't be here." I just stared. She blinked under the glare. "These flowers, they don't belong to anyone. They're just weeds. No one asked for this." I stepped forward, phone raised, already filming. They belong to everyone. Karen, Miguel arrived first, then Lainey, then 2 officers, not the same ones, from months ago. These guys came in silent, quick, and professional. Karen was detained on the spot. No resisting this time. No shouting. Just the sound of her boots crunching through the broken stalks as they led her away. By 9 a.m., the footage was viral again. Only this time, it wasn't just a video. It was a split screen on the left, Karen under floodlights with a jug of bleach. On the right, Elijah's bench surrounded by damaged, wilting sunflowers. The caption read, "She came back to kill what she couldn't control." The backlash this time wasn't just online. It was everywhere. The town paper ran the headline, "Field of Honor. Vandalized local woman arrested in pre-dawn sabotage." The city council called an emergency meeting and revoked her property access privileges across all public spaces. Her name was entered into a local civic violation registry. Neighbors put up signs, "Let the field grow." Karen is not Willowgate. We stand with Avery. Even people who used to whisper about me, folks who were neutral when she first started, came up to apologize. One woman cried when she handed me a new sunflower plant in a pot. I should have stood up sooner. Legally, Karen's act qualified as destruction of community property, trespassing, and violation of court orders tied to her prior settlement. She had no wiggle room. The judge didn't play around. Karen Monroe was sentenced to 6 months of community confinement, a $35,000 fine, and mandatory public apology to the families tied to the field's memorial program. But even that didn't feel like enough. So the town did something better. They made the field bigger. With help from local volunteers, we cleared the back lot that used to be empty. The space Karen had walked through in the dark, it became Sunset Row, a new strip lined with red and orange blooms. Planted in the shape of Elijah's initials, a group of local veterans helped lay the stones. High school students painted the new signs. A retired carpenter donated a new archway. It reads, "This field grows what hate can't kill." 3 weeks later, someone slid a plain envelope under my front door. No name, no return address. Inside, a photograph. Karen, sitting on a public bench outside City Hall, face bare, no makeup, no clipboard, Just looking forward, on the back of the photo, in pencil I couldn't destroy it, but I did see it, and now I can't unsee it. K, no apology, but not denial either. A sunny afternoon. Families walk the path of the sunflower field. A small child runs up to Elijah's bench, leaving a hand-drawn picture of a soldier and a heart. Farther down the path, Avery sits on a wooden stool, sipping iced tea, smiling as another veteran quietly thanks her. The camera pans upward above the rows, into the gold and blue of sky, where flowers stretch toward the light without apology. Fade to black. If you'd told me a year ago that Karen Monroe would ever step foot near my sunflower field again voluntarily, and without bleach, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. But this is a strange story. And well, people are stranger still. It came on the first morning of spring. My mailbox was filled with the usual seed catalogs, a donation receipt, a thank you card from a teacher who brought her third graders last fall. Then there was one envelope with my name written in shaky cursive. No return address, no stamp. Inside a single-page letter on lined paper, folded 3 times. Avery, I know I don't deserve to write this. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. I walked past the field yesterday. Just walked. That's all. It looked beautiful. Still standing. Still growing. There's a kind of peace in those rows that I never understood until everything else around me got quiet. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, not for getting caught, for not seeing what was right in front of me. If there's ever a way I can help quietly, anonymously I will. K.M. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a city clerk. At first, I thought it was about the spring planting grant, but she had a different question. Did you see that Karen Monroe submitted a petition to run for the neighborhood council? I nearly dropped my phone. Wait, what, she's eligible now? Her community confinement is complete. She filed the petition with 25 signatures from Willowgate residents. I sat down on my porch steps, staring out across the budding sunflowers. And are you serious? I figured you should hear it from us. The news spread like wildfire. Karen Monroe wants to run for office. The woman who trespassed, who faked an HOA, who tried to shut down a memorial garden. Some people were furious, others curious. A surprising number were hesitant to judge. She served her sentence. One woman said. She apologized. Another added, maybe we need someone on the council who understands how much power can be misused. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but the world was watching. A week before the candidate forum, I received another letter. This one typed, brief, Dear Avery, I know it may be strange, but I'd like to formally invite you to the community forum this Friday. You have every right to decline, and I won't blame you if you do, but I think it would mean something to you, to me, and maybe to others if you were there. Not to endorse, just to witness. Sincerely, Karen Monroe. I went. Not for her, not for spectacle. I went because I needed to know if the community that once stood behind me would now stand behind her. Karen stood at the podium in a plain navy dress, no pearls, no clipboard, no laminated bylaws. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. I'm not going to pretend I was misunderstood. I wasn't. I was wrong. I weaponized rules to feel in control. I treated fear like policy. I saw difference and called it disruption. I destroyed what was beautiful because I didn't understand it, and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm just asking for the chance to make sure no one else in this town ever feels unwelcome, unheard, or unsafe in their own space. The room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then a few more. I didn't clap, but I didn't walk out either. The next morning, I found a small box sitting under the welcome arch of the sunflower field. Inside, a pair of gardening gloves, a packet of golden zinnia seeds, and a handwritten note. If you let me plant one row anonymously, no credit, I'd be honored. Only if you say yes. Kamai stood there for a long time, watching the wind ripple through the half-grown stalks. My brother's name carved into the bench, the new volunteer trellis Miguel had built with donated wood. And I thought, is redemption real? Or is it just the story we tell to feel less broken? I didn't know. But I picked up the seeds and I dug one row. I didn't tell anyone whose it was. I just let it grow. Karen didn't win the seat. She lost by 12 votes, but she showed up at every meeting after. Not to speak, not to interrupt, just to listen. She stayed behind to stack chairs, to refill coffee, to pick up flyers left behind. People started waving to her again awkwardly at first, then naturally. One of the kids at the sunflower field once whispered, "Isn't that the mean lady?" His mom said gently. "She's the one who fixed the rain barrel last week." Late summer. The sunflower field is in full bloom. A young couple walks the path. A small sign reads, "This row planted by someone learning to grow." In the distance, two women tend a compost bin together. One younger, one older, both in gloves. They aren't talking. They're just working. The sun lowers. The gold deepens. The shadows stretch. And the field just keeps growing. Final call to action. Can people really change? Was Avery right to let Karen plant again even one row? Is justice always about punishment or sometimes about participation? Share your thoughts. What does redemption look like to you? If you believe peace can grow from even the worst roots, share this story.